All right, welcome everyone to the 14th Annual Abilities Expo, How to Thrive in 2025, Your Wellness, Your Way. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land which this event is taking place. These are the traditional territories, the Coast Salish peoples, and in particular the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. This acknowledgement is a statement to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their history. Please join me in a moment of reflection. Well, welcome everyone. I'll just quickly go through a rundown of what we are hosting here at Abilities Expo today. We are excited to have 45 amazing vendors this year. We will be having presentations by author Kara Stanley and Simon Paradis standing up on stage with me, and life coach Kara. At noon, we will be hosting our interactive activities in Room B. There will be adaptive chair yoga with Bobby Seal-Kowalski from 12:15 to 12:45. And then at 3:30, the contemporary improvisational dance with All Bodies Dance will be in the Performance Center. So, without further ado, Kara Stanley is a writer of fiction and nonfiction, a lyricist, and a movement teacher. Her husband, Simon Paradis, is a musician who has been playing in blues, rock, and roots bands across Canada for over 30 years, and has actively been participating in the Vancouver Adaptive Music Society program, one of the societies that makes up the Disability Foundation Network, including Connector. Yay! Simon had a serious fall in 2008, which resulted in life-threatening injuries. Together, this couple has collaborated on Kara's 2015 memoir, Fallen, which was longlisted for the BC Award for Canadian Nonfiction and on multiple of Simon's albums. Today, Kara and Simon offer a playful and musical exploration of the often difficult to think or talk about topics of chronic pain and surviving traumatic injuries. In an interactive collage of personal story, song, poetry, and science, they weave together a multifaceted look at ways to build resilience through promoting a sense of safety, pleasure, and communal connection. Because we all feel a little less lonely when we share our stories and sing our songs. Please join me in welcoming Kara Stanley and Simon Paradis.
Everybody. Thanks for the intro, Graham. I'm not sure that you need to say anything else. You covered pretty much everything. And we should also say that Graham has also contributed significantly to some of Simon's albums, many of Simon's albums. We are so happy to be here today. We want to thank Connectora, thank Graham and Emily and the whole Connectora crew for creating a space like this and for inviting us to be here. We're really happy to speak to the topic of the day, self-care and building resilience. We wanted to share some of the things that we learned, both as individuals and as a couple, when we collaborated on writing our book, which came out last spring, called The Pain Project. The book began really because we had reached that very difficult place in our life where even the notion of self-care, the idea of building resilience, it was just one more impossible thing on an already overwhelmingly long to-do list. We were stuck in a kind of survival mode where the demands of our life were in many ways just outweighing our capacity and our resources to deal with it. The book, with the idea of the book project, we wanted to really rally our personal individual strengths, which for me was as a writer and researcher, for Simon as an artist and a musician, and try and capitalize on the things that were our strengths. An attempt really to disrupt the difficult cycle that we were in. We really needed to try and do things a little differently. We're going to dive into some of the specific details of what we did through the book, which was kind of like a year-long experiment. One of the reoccurring themes in the book, also in our married life together, which has been more than 3 decades, and also for Simon as a improvisational musician. One of the reoccurring themes is just the critical importance of play and fun and focusing on cultivating the things in life that bring me joy. Simon is a master at spontaneous playfulness and fun and joy, especially when he has a guitar in his hand. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Right, that's a heavy title to wear. But, I find for myself, in terms of dealing with chronic pain issues, that it's important for me to find songs to play that allow me to pivot away from things that are dragging me down. And here's an excellent example of that. This is a Taj Mahal song called Cakewalk. I had the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. Well, I'm feeling so much better, I can cakewalk in town. Well, I woke up this morning feeling so good, you know I'll lay back down again. Throw your big leg over me, mama, I might not feel this good again. Oh my baby, why I sure love the way she walks. When the girl gets sleepy, I love the way she baby talks. Well, the work done got scarce, honey, all the work, it done got hard. I spent my whole day stealing chickens, mama, from the rich folks' yard. Well, I'm going up the country, you know, baby man, I'm gonna stay all day. I don't care if I don't do nothing, just while my time away. I said, jump, little children, jump. I said, jump, little children, like your mama and your papa's gone. I said, jump, little children, jump. I said, jump, little children, like your mama and your papa's gone. Like they gone. I had the blues so bad one time it put my face in a permanent frown. Well, I'm feeling so much better, I can cakewalk in town. Well, I'm feeling so much better, I can cakewalk in town. Well, I'm feeling so much better, I can cakewalk in town. All right. That's over.
Welcome to all the people who just came in. It's so nice to see such a great crowd. So when we talk about self-care and resilience, often the elephant in the room, the thing that we don't talk about, is pain. Pain in its many various forms. And the reason pain is that elephant in the room is because it's often a very difficult, not just difficult to talk about, but difficult to think about subject. And one of the reasons that's true is because it's so individual, it's so unique. Each of us here in the room today is going to have our own experience, our own history, our own perspective with with pain. And it's also an experience, the experience of pain, right? It's not a very articulate experience. It's an experience that is in the moment. It can be visceral, it's reactive, it can be all-consuming. And then the times that you're not experiencing pain, really the very last thing you want to do is talk or think about it, right? So when we started the book, part of the realization that was a catalyst for working on the project was coming to this idea that while both of us know pain, and for each of us it's a very different experience, we didn't really understand it all that well. I had written a line in an earlier book that had begun to haunt me. I wrote that pain is a powerful teacher of how to stay in the present moment. And the line wasn't haunting me because I regret writing it. I don't. And it wasn't because I don't believe it to be true. I still do. It's just that after more than a decade of bearing witness to Simon's experience of extreme chronic pain, it was a line that felt so naively incomplete. There was so much more to the story of pain. And that is where we were when we began our book project. We were trapped in a very present but very painful moment. Like so many other people who have navigated chronic conditions, we had exerted a lot of energy in trying to solve it, in trying to fix it. We had, done everything from the medically sanctioned, the rigorously peer-reviewed, to the anecdotal, the apocryphal, the whimsical. In the absence of any real success in addressing Simon's pain, his main strategy, as he would describe it, was to not give the pain any airtime, was his phrase. And otherwise known in our family as the suck it up buttercup strategy, something that the Stoics would have really approved of. And it was a strategy that wasn't that bad. It worked to a certain extent right up until the time that it just didn't work. And then we started to realize just how much energy we were expending in not talking about, in not thinking about the actual experience of pain and the impact it was having on Simon's life and on our life together. And so we began with this question of, could we take all of that energy and turn it into directly confronting this experience of pain? Could we learn anything new? Could we find a way forward? The first thing that we realized was that as difficult, as challenging an experience pain is, it is in many ways objectively fascinating. The kind of chronic long-term pain that Simon has, which is due to a spinal cord injury, is one of the more rare, complex, weird, confounding types of pain. But it does provide a very interesting and instructive lens through which to view many of the more kind of routine, everyday pains that we are all here familiar with, which, as it turns out, are also really complex and weird and highly contingent on context. I'd like to take a moment and invite you guys right now to turn to your left and look at the two people immediate to your left, and for the people on the end of the aisles, just do the best you can. Say hi to your neighbor, and then take a moment and look at the two people to your immediate right, or as best as you can. The idea being that's 5 people. 2 people to your left, 2 people to your right. It's a pod of 5 people. So, a very conservative estimate says that 1 in 5 people around the world experiences moderate to severe chronic pain of some form, right? Many different kinds of pain. So of your pod of 5, there is a very good chance that one of you or more of you has or is currently experiencing some form of ongoing chronic pain. And if we think of it that way, that's a lot of people here today in this room, right? That's a lot of people around the world. The type of pain that we're talking about is often very invisible. It is difficult to diagnose. It is therefore difficult to treat. And because of all of those things, it can make it a very frustrating and isolating experience. So with that in mind, the thing about pain is that it often challenges us to hold two or more contradictory but potentially equally true ideas at the same time. And so I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge anyone here today who has or is currently experiencing chronic ongoing pain. And I'd like to acknowledge that it can be a profoundly lonely experience. But it is also true, 1 in 5, you are absolutely not alone. And the more that we can come together on days like this, care-based community events like Connectra, and talk about these types of shadowy subjects like pain, the less alone we all feel.
I, for one, am not a big fan of optimistic platitudes, especially when they're being applied to things that have to do with pain. I don't find it all that constructive, although I believe being optimistic is a constructive act. But every now and then I do find a concise phrase that I think actually encompasses part of the experience of dealing with a chronic issue. This is a song off my last record called I've Been Better, I've Been Worse.
Me, I'm just hanging around, minding my own business. People ask me, how's it going? Man, how have you been? I've been better, I've been worse. I seem to get what I can't take, so I gotta take what I can get. Called a friend who was feeling down, just had to ask her how you been. You got that thing that's been going around, and all she had to say to me was, I've been better, I've been worse. I seem to get what I can't take, so I gotta take what I can get. Call my mom and call my pa, just to see how they were getting on. They just keep on keeping on, and all they ever have to say is, we've been better, we've been worse. Just keep on doing first things first. We're hanging in, yeah, we're hanging tough. I'll let you know when we've had enough, yeah. I've been better, I've been worse. I seem to get what I can't take, so I gotta take what I can get. So I gotta take what I can get. So I gotta take what I can get.
You might hear me tune here while Kara talks. I apologize for the little tweaking.
So with the book project, what we wanted to do was ask this question: what is pain? And try and answer it from as many angles, perspectives, and points of view as possible. Again, it's a difficult question to ask and answer, because while we may know pain, we often don't understand it all that well. Also difficult because, again, everybody has a different answer. If we were to ask each and every one of you here today, we might find that we have a different definition of what that means to you. Pain is, in its essence, an amorphous shapeshifter. We did, though, find answers to that question that were helpful. Many, many different answers, some that were very unexpected and surprising to us. Today we're going to focus on one very specific, basic, fundamental answer, but I want to be clear that I offer it as one answer among many, right? We all have different answers to this question. For us, this was the most helpful answer because it really grounded our project from the outset in a place of compassion for ourselves and for each other. So, what is pain? Pain is the body's way of trying to protect you. Listening to, addressing, learning from, this is what has ensured our survival as a species. Sometimes pain can become overprotective, it can become hypervigilant, it can be the result of bad information, as is the case for Simon with the spinal cord injury. But it's always protective in its essence. And so for Simon and I, as we embarked on this year-long project, there was something deeply reassuring in constantly reaffirming this notion that pain is a very routine, normal, critically necessary, evolutionarily important part of our life. Pain is a potent protector, and it is always a reflection of a perceived state of threat or danger in our body. Our central nervous system, so our brain stem, and our spinal cord is constantly assessing for danger or threat, both internally within our biological selves, but also externally in the world at large. That assessment of threat or danger is happening at a speed much, much faster than conscious thought, and it involves multiple domains. So our physical self, everything in our biological world, but also our psychological, cognitive thinking self. It involves our social self, so our place in the world, how safe or precarious we feel out in the world. And I would also argue it involves our spiritual self. So this assessment of threat or danger is potentially a very complex process. The great thing about writing a book is that you get to dive into complexity that might not be possible or even appropriate in a 15-minute, half-hour visit with your GP. And the deeper we got into the project, the more important it became to avoid so much of the reductive things that were fed about pain. No pain, no gain. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Pain is inevitable, suffering isn't, those kinds of things. And we wanted to get away from that sort of reductive thinking and really embrace the complexity of it. Because pain is not just a medical and biological experience, it is also a biographical and an existential one. It is always involving our whole self. And at that core of our whole self is, again, the nervous system. So nervous system, again, brain stem, spinal cord. And the health of that nervous system has a huge impact on how we move, how we think, and how we feel. It's not a singular biological structure. You can't, it's not like a broken bone. You can't put a cast on it and fix it. It is more of an ongoing process, right? It's involved in creating our moment-by-moment experience of being alive. So in a very real sense, there is nothing to fix, right? All of us here today, our nervous system is creating this moment by moment experience of being alive here in this room now together. And all of us, all of our nervous systems are doing the very best they can, and sometimes under very difficult or challenging circumstances. So it was this realization that really prompted us to stop thinking about fixing or solving pain, and start to think about the ways that we could impact change. Because the nervous system does change. In fact, it insists on changing. You know, it is changing right up until the moment of our final breath. The work of changing or healing the nervous system is not particularly easy work, but in many ways it's pretty straightforward. It is that slow, daily, consistent, incremental grind of taking steps to make positive change. You know, as the song Simon just sang says, trying to make things better, not worse.
And as Kara was saying, oh wow, my mic is very boomy. And as Kara was saying, I got to a point with my relationship with chronic pain where I realized I had to stop trying to fix and solve it and actually figure out a different way to have a relationship with that chronic pain where it was on my terms and not pain's terms. So a lot of kind of healthy distractions, and in a weird way, as a descriptor, it was like I had to find a way to invite pain in for a cup of tea and be able to ask it, why? You know, why are you here? And what are you doing to me? Kind of re-scripting a narrative. And with that in mind, this next song is called Sweet Melinda, which was a name taken from a Bob Dylan tune called Just Like Tom Thump's Blues, where within it he has a character that he calls Sweet Melinda, and the lyric goes, the peasants called her Sweet Melinda, the goddess of doom. She speaks good English and she invites you up to her room. And I remember as a kid thinking, man, that's a lot of weight to put on the shoulders of some character in perpetuity. So I wrote a song called Sweet Melinda where I recraft her character more as an oracle of hope.
There's a lot you can learn from the noise in the room or the whining of the engines outside. There's a lot you will hear, who's to blame, who to fear. Someone will try to take you for a ride. Me, I hedge my bets, replay old regrets, and use this bottle to heal my pride. If it's not too much to ask, here's $5 for gas. And Sweet Melinda, could you drive us through the night? Every county has a line drawn over time. Once crossed, you can't find your way back. You'll either grow up sure and strong, or you'll find before too long you're just a lot of everything you lack. There's no easy plan, we're all doing what we can, hoping in time some things might last. Well, I could have made it big had I just worn the wig, and Sweet Melinda, you go so fast, that beep bum boom.
Sorry, I had mic issue.
Taking little pills for the aches and the chills, everything that's feverish and sick. But you can't treat a fever if you're not a believer, 'cause having faith is half of the trick. And believing, you know, well, it ebbs and it flows like a snake, it sheds its skin. Why, I thought it would be better if I put it in a letter. Sweet Melinda, show me how to begin. The bass drum pounds, we buy another round, thinking maybe this should be the last. Rock and roll had its day, but then money got in the way. Try to hop a train out of the past. I'm a long way from good, man, I'm many miles from fine, and my records have both grooves and ruts. If we leave before the moon, we can reach the coast by noon. Sweet Melinda, if we only had the guts. Ah, sweet Melinda, if we only had the guts. Ah, sweet Melinda, if we only had the guts.
So if our first question with the book project was to try and answer the question, what is pain? Our second main question was a little more self-serving. And it was more along the lines of like, okay, what the hell do we do to make this better? We would have liked to discover, we would like to be able to offer, that kind of surefire prescription, the 10 steps to solving this issue. But spoiler alert, that's not what ended up happening. And in fact, as we went along in the project, we became much more committed to being very intentionally process-oriented and to try as best as we could, and it wasn't easy, but to try as best as we could to let go of that desire for a quick fix, for a surefire solution. In many ways, it was a very big learning curve, and we had to come face to face and reckon with our own deeply embedded, fully embodied North American cultural inheritance, which, particularly as it relates to pain, I would characterize as frustration and impatience with any kind of notion of limitation or vulnerability. And I think sometimes self-care, self-help prescriptions, solutions, often have the unintended message that experiencing pain or being vulnerable in any way is somehow unacceptable in our culture, when in fact we know that it is very familiar and common and instructive and important part of being alive, right? It is an essential reality of being a human being. So no surefire solutions. We did really discover things that we felt were, surefire, one-size-fits-all, universally helpful tools. And the first and most fundamental one was learning about the science behind pain. And there's a lot of research that backs up the idea that when you know what's happening with the pain experience, it can profoundly help to diminish the threat that is inherent in that experience. Learning about pain helps to decrease its threat level, which is important in decreasing the pain.
And in my case, I found experiencing chronic pain, and I still experiencing I experience chronic pain still, was that it was a sense of kind of free fall when it was happening, and you weren't really sure when it was going to come and if it was ever going to leave. And by learning actual scientific components of the pain experience itself, it's almost like it provided a structure or a scaffolding, you will, so that I had things that would give me purchase and keep me from free falling through the experience. Like I could actively think about what it was I was going through at that time, and it helped me, manage it a lot better.
Many of the tools that were helpful for us focused or related to this idea. How do we realistically decrease threats and stress in our lives and increase a sense of safety and pleasure? One thing we know is that extreme pain of any form, and again, many different kinds of pain, but extreme pain radically jeopardizes a sense of safety or pleasure. And so focusing on those things, safety and pleasure, this is not a frivolous pursuit. It is not a selfish pursuit. It is critical to the overall health of the nervous system. So it's important to surround yourself with people who support you in promoting a sense of safety, pleasure, ease, a sense of belonging. It's important to be kind to yourself. We often don't always extend the same compassion to ourselves that we would to a beloved friend or, even a stranger. And so I think sometimes when that internal monologue can get going in our own heads, I think it's helpful sometimes to ask yourself what you would say if it was a good friend who was going through that experience, and turn that generosity back to yourself. And it's so important to honor your body. There are so many things in our modern world, and it's not just pain and it's not just illness. There's so many things that can provoke a sense of threat to our nervous system. As I said earlier, that nervous system is creating that moment by moment experience of being alive.
This is cashew, by the way.
Often under very difficult circumstances. And so for all of us, whether we're currently in pain or not, the challenge is how do we stay connected and grounded in a fragmented and often volatile world, right? The sense of threat, if we allow it, can become omnipresent. And so it's really critical in these circumstances to find restorative spaces of safety, pleasure, and connection in our lives. Communal connection, communal connection. So finding those things that help you stay connected and grounded are they're very subjective. They're going to be deeply personal. We tried a lot in our year-long experience. Some of the things worked, some of them didn't. Some of them were deeply ridiculous. Some things worked for me but didn't work for Simon, and vice versa. It's going to be different for us all, right? There are ways to approach it, formal ways through talk therapy or cognitive behavior therapy or support groups. But there's also less formal ways, like studying Buddhism or taking up gardening or joining a choir. The method is going to be different for us all, but the overarching aim remains the same, and that is the ways that we can discover individually, communally, to promote that sense of ease or safety, fun, pleasure, and connection, belonging. So for me, those things have always come through engaging with stories and through a movement practice. For Simon, that journey has always led him back to music.
And for me, for a long time, before we got into the project itself, I was brought to dealing with my chronic pain by my physician through a pharmaceutical avenue, and was taking hydromorphone on a daily basis, which ultimately didn't really take the pain away, but just made me completely reliant on hydromorphone and messed with my mind. So anyway, I quit it during quarantine. This is me kind of doing my own anecdotal thing here. I quit hydromorphone during quarantine, and one of the things that helped me quit it was I wrote a song about quitting hydromorphone called Last of Me. I'll play it for you now.
Tell me once, you can tell me twice. Just cause you say it 3 times don't make it good advice. Some say follow your heart. No sense in living with regret. You think you got the best of me, but that's the last of me you're gonna get. Well, I punched the champ right in the nose. That smack he was talking about, I knew it blows and I've been all over this town, but I ain't some stray dog you can just pet. You think you got the best of me, but that's the last of me you're gonna get. You crawl across my skin, you seep into my mind. You're vengeful, spiteful, evil, and unkind. You move pieces round the board, you pull cards from the bottom of the deck. You think you got the best of me, but that's the last of me, yeah. I head to the station, catch the 305. This is Nancy, gonna keep me alive. I will send for my trunk, you can pose my room up to that. You think you got the best of me, but that's the last of me, yeah. Well, honeysuckle blooming, fish on the line, a little bit of dancing, one more bottle of wine. I got $700, I don't need to worry about no debt. You think you got the best of me, but that's the last of me gonna get. You think you got the best of me, but that's the last of me you're gonna get. You think you got the best of me, but that's the last of me you're gonna get.
So those of you who have experience with navigating chronic conditions, you might be familiar with the phrase, pain is inevitable, suffering is not. It's Simon's very least favorite pain platitude. But for me, it's sort of another example of the way extreme pain often challenges us to hold contradictory, two or more contradictory, but equally potentially true ideas at the same time. I think because on the one hand, we can, you see it contains a good dose of practical advice. We all know that mindset matters, that, the way we approach a problem can radically amplify or diminish its challenge. The problem with pain is inevitable and suffering isn't, though, is that it doesn't acknowledge how complicated social, political, environmental, ecological, geographical, or even historical issues might be factors that directly contribute to, in the moment, present moment experience of pain or suffering. A lot of self-care, a lot of self-help literature focuses often exclusively on how the individual must change, right? The individual must change their attitudes, their beliefs, their expectations. And that's important work, and I don't mean to diminish it. It is important work. If we want to heal and change the nervous system, we have to at least minimally be open to the possibility of change. But in a contradictory but equally true sense, it is also so very important to acknowledge that it really doesn't matter how great your mindset is or how deep your practice of loving kindness or gratitude. If you routinely experience systemic marginalization or violence within your community, if you don't have access to safe housing or clean water or nourishing food or a way to earn a living into the future, it is so much more likely that you will at some time or another experience pain and suffering. So true healing, I think, really requires that both the individual and the society is open to the possibility of change. Again, our North American society, we really value the cure, right? And of course, who doesn't love a good cure? We do. Simon wouldn't be here today without the awesome and profound ways that medical science can rescue the human body. But we don't, at a cultural level, value caring in the same way. In fact, we often actively devalue it. So for me, when we talk about self-care and building resilience, it's really important to acknowledge that the burden of caring is not just an individual responsibility, right? We need to create communities that embrace the idea that even if all better isn't an option, healing is always still possible. And we need to create communities where caring and caregiving is as valued as curing. I think there's so many different ways to engage in that type of communal action. A day like today is such a great place to start, right? So thank you again to Connectra for creating a care-based space to bring community together. The more that we can come together, talk about shadowy subjects like pain, I think the more we realize that we might not be as alone as we sometimes feel. It's great when we can come together, share ideas, knowledge, different perspectives, creative expression. Even better if we can be together safely, let our guard down a little bit, get a little silly, breathe, move, sing together. And so with that, I leave you with an invitation to join Simon in this final song.
Before I get going, I would also like to give a big hand to the ESL interpreters who have been running point on this show. Just doing a fantastic job. Okay, everyone in this room knows this song and has heard it on the radio 10,000 times. And so, frankly, I expect all of you to sing along in the chorus. And then if it sounds good, we'll buy a big tour bus and we'll go on tour.
Well, I saw her today at the reception. Glass of wine in her hand. Well, I knew she was gonna meet her connection. At her feet was a footloose man. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. Well, you can't always get what you want. But if you try sometime, well, you might find you get what you need. Well, I went down to the demonstration to get my fair share of abuse. Singing, we're gonna vent our frustrations. If we don't, we're gonna blow a 50 amp fuse. Alright, sing it with me. You can't always get what you want. Thank you. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, well, you might find you get what you need. Well, I went down to the Chelsea drugstore to get my prescription filled. I was standing in line with I sung my song to Mr. Jermaine. He said one word to me, and that was yeah. I said to him, you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometime, you might find you get what you need. Oh, I saw her today at the reception. Boss was a bleeding man. She was practiced at the art of deception. Well, I could tell by her a blood-stained hand. But you can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes.
Thank you very much, everybody. Once again, I'd like to thank Connectra, Emily, and Graham, of course, for helping throw this shindig, and for all of you joining us here today to talk about pain, which is not much fun.
All right, let's give another round of applause for Simon and Kara. Thank you both very much for participating today.